presentation. Okay. So this is the middle school session. So I'm going to skip the elementary stuff and really focus on just middle school for right now. The big overarching idea here is that things can always change. So keep that in mind as I go through this. This is where we stand right now, but you know, in a couple weeks, we might be back to a full shutdown and we won't have the same options for learning, okay? So what will school look like for our scholars in the fall? Basically, we no longer can go to school full-time 5 days a week for safety reasons, and we can't have all students on campus all the time either. So we've kind of had to juggle both of those scenarios and come up with 2 options for everybody. When doing this, when coming up with our options, we really had to think about the safety of students and staff and families, but also balance that with providing high quality instruction for everybody. And so we felt like providing this hybrid model that I'm going to talk about was a good, safe balance. And that's what a lot of schools in in the state of California have kind of been leaning towards, is this hybrid model, because it also can provide on-campus academic support while also, again, keeping it safe and not having all students on campus at the same time. So these are the 2 options that you're going to have as of right now. So as of right now, we're allowed to offer a hybrid learning model. But again, keep in mind that this could change if we go back to a full lockdown. And if we went back to a full lockdown, we would only be able to offer virtual learning. But for right now, I'm going to talk about kind of the 2 options families have when we go back in August. Okay. So the first option that a family has is this hybrid learning model. And basically students would be divided into 3 cohorts. So think about your student has a class of 30 kids. That 30 kids would be broken into 3 groups. So group A would have about 10 kids, group B 10 kids, group C 10 kids. Each cohort would go to school minimum 1 time a week. Mondays are reserved for small group intervention for identified students. So if your student is identified for small group intervention, they would go to school Monday and their cohort day. So let's say you have a student in cohort A and they need small group intervention, they would go to school, let's say Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday through Friday would be virtual. If you have a student in cohort A, but they're not in small group intervention, they would only go to school, let's say Tuesday. And Monday, Wednesday through Friday would be home learning. So that's kind of the idea there. Students will watch instructional videos and complete assignments in Google Classroom when they're at home on those independent study days. And then teachers will check in with students by appointment in the afternoons from 2 to 4. So the hybrid is exactly what it sounds like. It's a mixture of 1, maximum 2 days on campus and the rest of learning at home. Option 2, if you choose, if you don't feel comfortable with option 1, and I'm going to go through the safety measures that we're going to have on campus in a later slide, but I wanted to go through the 2 options first. Option 2, if you choose that, is a fully virtual learning model, which means students engage in the independent learning activities online Monday through Friday. They will watch instructional videos and complete assignments in Google Classroom. The only really live teaching they'll have is they'll have an advisory class in the morning for 30 minutes and mandatory office hours every Friday. Or if they need intervention, if they're in that small group of intervention, they'll have virtual intervention on Monday. But I want you to keep in mind that the virtual learning schedule is very self-directed as of right now. So if you choose virtual, it's very self-directed. So think about, you know, there's a lot of things you have to think about for your child. Number 1 is safety, but number 2 is kind of what kind of learner they are. Because just full transparency, virtual learning will be very online, student-led, things like that, okay? So we'll move on. what kind of things will our students get in terms of emotional and mental well-being, because this is a really overwhelming time for anybody, especially kids. It's really confusing for them. So during advisory, they're going to have community circles, and this is something that they've been doing in person anyway. Basically, it's a chance for them to go around and talk about feelings and answer questions that teachers might have. It's a safe space to share what's going on in their mind. They'll still continue mindful moments. These are basically 3 to 5 minute sort of meditation, like getting centered activities. We still will offer virtual counseling for students with identified counseling needs. We still will have our PBIS discipline system, because we will still have students on campus. And so those sorts of things will still need to happen. And then we'll give weekly student surveys to see how students are coping with what's going on in the world and also at school. Okay, so this is like really overwhelming, and chances are we'll send this out and you can look at it, but this is just kind of the sample schedule that I talked to you about. If you have a student who does not need intervention, they will only come to school 1 day a week. That's what the hybrid model looks like. If you have a student who needs intervention because the school identifies your student as someone who needs extra support, they will come to school 2 days a week. Okay, so think about that. And we can say, I'll send this out later just because it's kind of overwhelming. If you choose to do the virtual one, this is kind of what it would look like. So Monday, again, if your student is selected for small group intervention, they will have a virtual intervention on Monday. And then Tuesday through Thursday, they will have 3 to 4 hours of independent study. So they'll watch pre-recorded videos, they'll complete assignments and submit them online. And then Friday, they will have mandatory office hours. And that's really, if you choose this model, that's really the only sort of like face-to-face, intervention that they're gonna, or not intervention, but check-in that they're gonna get with their teacher, aside from the online advisory. These are the platforms that we're going to be using. So I'm sure you've heard of a lot of them, but all of it is going to be located and live in the Google Classroom. So students will always need to have access to their Google Classroom. Parents will also need to check their students' Google Classroom daily, because that's kind of like their new backpack and their new agenda and their new planner. Everything lives in Google Classroom. So it'll be a lot of work for parents to stay on top of that. And online learning programs for middle school, we'll be using Achieve 3000 and IXL. And I think we'll also probably sprinkle in some Khan Academy for videos and things like that, but those are some of the main programs that we're going to be using. So basically, we don't make the rules about what we want to do, right? So we get information from the LA County Department of Health and from Governor Newsom, and we kind of make our decisions based on their guidelines. And so that's why I'm saying things are always changing. So if you look at this bottom paragraph, it says, if we are unable to open school buildings, then we will do virtual. It's not because we want to, it's because these are the orders that we have been given. So if we are not able to open for the hybrid model and everybody has to do virtual learning, this is what it's going to look like on the right side of your screen. Teachers will provide live instruction to all students Tuesday through Friday. So versus if we had the hybrid and the virtual and you chose virtual, remember there's not really live instruction. But if everybody has to do virtual, then the teachers will be providing live instruction. And Monday will still be the online intervention groups. And for everybody else, it'll be self-directed learning on Mondays. Things that will be the same are curriculum, the pacing. Students are still going to be guided through the same standards, the same curriculum that they would in person. Grading will be exactly the same. Attendance will need to be taken every single day. Same use of Google Classroom and online learning programs, and then communication with teachers will be the same. It'll be through email, through Class Dojo, or phone call. Did I miss anything, Ms. Benema? Okay. So health and safety, this is the same sort of thing that we were dealing with at the end of the year. You know, if students or staff feel sick or experiencing any symptoms, we're going to ask that, well, we're going to require that they stay home. We're going to work together to keep our school community as safe as possible. We have signs out on our campus that are talk about the symptoms and requiring to wear a mask and things like that. So health and safety is our #1 priority. When they come back, if you choose for your student to do the hybrid model, these are some things that you're going to see at our school. So social distancing will be reinforced as it was at the end of the year, but it will continue to be reinforced. Because we've broken up a cohort into thirds, students' desks are going to be 6 feet apart. So we had a team of ICEF come in and measure each classroom and determine how the desks could be spaced. So the desks will be spaced 6 feet apart in every single classroom and in the offices. The hallways will be one-way hallways. The restrooms will be limited to the number of students inside. And other school spaces will have the social distancing markers, so students don't stand and staff don't stand too close to each other. Required use of masks for all students, staff, and visitors on campus. So if you're coming on campus, you have to have a mask, and that includes learning in the classroom. Everybody will need a mask on. We'll have a reduced number of students on campus. Obviously, we do that by only having students come to school 1 day a week, and the cohort is broken into thirds. Daily temperature checks for all staff, students, and any visitors. So when students get dropped off, we're going to take their temperature at the gate. If their temperature is too high, we're just going to turn them around and send them back home. If a staff member comes in and their temperature is too high, the same thing. And minimal visitors allowed on campus. And so if you are going to come on campus, we ask that you make an appointment to speak to somebody so we don't have parents congregating in the hallway or outside. So we're going to try to do by appointment only, and you can do that by reaching out to our office staff. Frequent hand washing and hand sanitizing built into the school schedule. So times for students to make sure that they are cleaning their hands and some of their materials. Prepackaged meals served in the classroom. So we're not going to be eating outside. We're going to be eating in the classroom at their desks that are spaced 6 feet apart. Enhanced cleaning and sanitizing procedures for all campuses and spaces. And then multiple entry and exit points to ensure students don't congregate before and after school. So we're not going to be having those, students hanging out together. They're going to come on campus and we're going to have to start school. So we can't be hanging out in the yard. If you're interested in doing a virtual tour, we're going to release electronic visuals of what the campus looks like once it's fully ready. So right now we're in the process of getting the office plexiglass and getting the floor markers and things like that. So once everything is ready, we're going to offer these virtual tours so parents can see. We're still going to have our orientations virtually. So TK first is that date, which you guys would only be concerned with. Friday, July 30th is middle school virtual orientation. Most of our communication has been going out by Parent Square and Class Dojo. And I know it's summer, so make sure you turn on your notifications for Class Dojo. So if you need to get, your phone binging or dinging or whatever, make sure you turn on those notifications because a lot of stuff is coming through that. And then if there are more concerns or questions, we'll continue to have these sort of town hall open conversations so we can answer questions virtually as needed. So that's a lot, but before we do the questions, I just want to be clear about one thing that I missed. Because we're running on numbers and making sure we can accommodate students 6 feet apart, once you select your option for virtual or virtual or hybrid, you will not be able to switch it for the rest of the trimester. So once you've selected it, you have to keep that because we don't want someone who has been at home for a week, and then their parent decides, oh, actually, I want them hybrid, you know, and then they bring whatever germs might be coming from home. So once you make that decision, it's going to have to stay that way. And I know that a survey already went out, but I'm working to figure out how, after these coffee with the principals, if you change your mind from that original survey, how you can change your selection to be a final selection. Okay, so that was a lot. So if you have any questions,